Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Deployed Engineer channel. I'm Baulik, your host, and today we have Pedro Rambo on the podcast. Pedro is a software and AI engineer at Addy AI, where he's my coworker. And previously, Pedro was a founder. He built a cybersecurity company and exited it. Pedro has great knowledge in the cybersecurity space as well. He's great at planning and architecture, super organized, and I really want to learn from him today. So, welcome to the podcast, Pedro.
Thank you, Malik. Thank you. Thank you. I liked your
Awesome.
introduction. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. So, yeah, tell me about your first company and how do you get into the cybersecurity space?
Okay. I think my interest regarding like cybersecurity brought me to my first company because it's not like it was not 100% focused on cybersecurity, but it was more focused on like data protection, which is also cybersecurity. So, yeah. But I've started producing software when I was like, I think 16, not like useful software, but just Minecraft plugins in Java. So yeah, and then I joined a technical course on basically programming. And fast forward, I was 19, and then I joined a cybersecurity company in Brazil as a software engineer. So I didn't have my own software at that time. I just joined a company to like do software stuff for them. Then I founded my first company for like data protection. It was basically software that helped organizations be compliant with the local law for like data protection, data regulation, everything else. So yeah, I had to do a bunch of software for like just SaaS, but also software that controlled firewalls. So maybe we can dive deep into that later. You didn't know that, I know.
Yes, I wasn't aware about that. That's quite interesting. So, yeah, like what got you interested in this and how did you think about it? Do you have to do some certifications? How do you pick a field?
Okay. The field that I picked was programming, software engineering, of course, but like uh, my interest in software, I don't know how I got it, how I started on it, but like I always liked software engineering and cybersecurity. I don't know how to. Maybe YouTube videos because I've watched YouTube since I was very young, and I really liked like everything that's visual and audible. I love it. That's why I was like watching a bunch of YouTube videos, and at that time, I think most of the heavy engineering channels were covering programming and cybersecurity. So I think that's what influenced me on liking those two stuffs. But yeah, I think that's it. And I
Okay.
liked it. Like if you see a video, a 5-minute video about cybersecurity and you like it, then that's enough.
That's great. So it just developed interest by exploring initially and then getting into it.
Yeah. And I think that most of the like part of my interest on those two areas were that imagine that you like, for example, you dream about being a medic. You can train, you can do almost anything until you like go to college and start doing your stuff. It's very different with programming and cybersecurity because you just need a computer. You don't need a good computer. You just need a computer that works, that can run software. And so like if you watch a video, they tell you how to do it. You start working locally, open your terminal, let's say, and you can already start like hacking, trying your stuff. So maybe that's why I like it.
That's nice. Tell me more about the gap you saw at that point in time and how you built that confidence to start that company that early. What was your thought process like?
Okay. It was very strategic, but in general, like my co-founder got the idea. So we just joined, brainstormed a lot and created like the MVP. But the long story is that it was what, 4 years ago, maybe. So the general data protection law in Europe was already like working. They had before that, we had a lot of scandals with like Facebook at that time and some other companies. So there was a necessity for a regulation on data protection on like personal data. So it started in Europe, as far as I know, with the GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation, I think. But in Brazil, we didn't have anything at that time. But it was like we have a tendency to copy things from other countries. So like right from the start, when they started like thinking about the data protection regulation in Brazil, we noticed that, oh, this is probably going to be copy and paste from GDPR from Europe. So yeah, we should definitely start working on a software for that, for the Brazilian public, because of course you need like different Brazilian people. They have different necessities regarding law and regarding data protection. So yeah, we saw a space to do that. And what we did in that cybersecurity company was very related to the technical part of being compliant with data protection. So that helped a lot. But like in general, the law was not working or in function in Brazil, but we noticed that like very soon it would be applied in Brazil, and it got applied.
So you got started before it became a real rollout across the country.
Yeah, we started before the law was like put to work, but after it got like, I don't know, like when they mentioned that they were going to do a law for that, which is it was a tendency basically, because like it's impossible that people tolerate having their data leaked for a long time. So it's a tendency that every country will do that. And they did.
Wow. Interesting. What are like some of the things going on in cybersecurity right now? Newer spaces that you've been following in that space. I'd like to learn more about it.
Okay, so one thing that was a tendency, but now, like, of course, the first thing is AI, because as we developed AI features, generally we discovered new areas that previously were not vulnerable. Now we have like, mainly we have code that was 100% generated by AI and not reviewed, which basically means like, try to hack. If you try to hack it, you'll hack it. So that's one thing, of course, like lack of reviewing of AI generated code, but also prompt engineering or prompt hacking, where you have a service where you say like, oh, this service, this AI agent is specifically for like answering questions about, I don't know, science. And then you try to hack it. You put your own prompt and try to change it to make like it answer basically what you want. You can think of like, imagine that you have a free app that just do one simple thing. You cannot use it for like your general tasks, like summarize this text. It should not work like that. But if you create your own prompt and try to hack it, you can do it. So yeah, that's for sure. It's one thing. But before we had AI, I know that like previously, most of the things that got companies hacked was very technical issues. So dependencies not updated, systems just open, networks open with no firewall and that kind of stuff. And then we have something called OWASP, which is like it's a foundation around cybersecurity, and they have the ranking of the most common vulnerabilities. Vulnerabilities. It's a hard word.
Yeah.
And before, like I think 10 years ago, 8 years ago, maybe the most common vulnerabilities were like very technical stuff, not configuring a firewall, systems not updated. And then like 5 years ago, it changed completely because the most common vulns changed from technical stuff regarding systems to like business logic stuff. I think probably the top one was broken access, which basically means like Pedro, which was the developer developing that feature, forgot to add an if to check if the user is authenticated or not. But like expand that to user permissioning. And I don't know, like as systems grows, they become very complex. And usually there's one specific spot that the developer forgot to check for something. So that's basically like broken access. And it happens a lot. So because like if you just put an automatic update on your server, it's going to be updated. So you won't you won't get like outdated packages with vulns. And also for code, you just run one command and it like detects the vulnerabilities, upgrade the packages and do everything else. But for code, it's much harder. So usually you rely on like third-party companies to check your code. They have a person manually checking every line of code to see if like, oh, can we break this logic here? And they try to do it. So yeah, it changed from being like system update, system firewall configuration, system configuration to being like logic, business logic, and then AI or prompt hacking.
That's interesting. I read an interesting study yesterday from Anthropic where if that so Anthropic, which is like cloud, which it trains its data based on the what's available documents available on the internet, and they said in a million in like if you amount of poisoning that happens to that data, poisoning meaning malicious content that's put in those documents, if the percentage is like 0.016%, I believe, or something, then it poisons like a big, it is like a lot of like it's big. You just need like 0.016% of the total amount of data that the model is trained on to be poisoned for like for the model to have a lot of like poisoned impact, like something around that. So it's kind of interesting how like people could strategically poison different parts of the internet and then have these models do training runs on them, and then like you have models that are kind of poisoned. And I think there's a lot more to it. I might have not explained it that clearly, but there's a study that Anthropic released around poison documents and the training. But I kind of like see how even like the whole idea of prompt injection and other things in the AI space affect like this space, cybersecurity, and becomes kind of important even further. And do you have anything to say about like people vibe coding without really understanding the code?
I do, but before that, I would like to talk about two things. You were saying, I was thinking like, yeah, poisoning, and also poisoning because if you have the right prompt to poison something, like in your training data, it might like your bad prompt or your bad input could have 10 times the weight of a normal input. So we're basically like ignoring proper stuff and only focusing on the poisonous things if we have the right prompt. So yeah. And another thing is that imagine that like all of the mainstream AIs were trained on existing data from the internet. Okay. Before AI, of course. So we have like human produced information and maybe things that make sense. But now we're starting to get a lot of AI generated content. If you plan on doing a post on a social media for a company, you're probably using AI. So imagine like in 10 years where 20-30% of the content in the internet will be AI generated, and we'll be training AIs on that AI generated content. You know, when you
That's
upload a video to YouTube, they compress it and you do it again and again and again, and the image becomes trash. Imagine that this can happen to AI too. Or they put a hard limit on like, we didn't have AI before like 2022. So we always train on data up to 2022, never after that. Imagine if they do that. It would be interesting.
It's interesting. I wonder how much of the synthetic data will be useful. There's so much slop as well. Like people thoughtlessly copy content they get on ChatGPT and like paste it, and they don't even care to read it sometimes. Or people have a ton of emojis on their posts, right? Like it feels so synthetic, right? In that case. So I think there's definitely, so yeah, totally. Like it's an interesting insight. What will happen in 10 years? Training on AI. It's AI
They
data.
have a thing called garbage in, garbage out. So if you have a training AI with garbage, it outputs garbage. So yeah, we'll see if
That
this happens or not.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Cool. So, I noticed that you're like very organized and planned, and you're good with system architecture as well when you're building systems. How did you like learn about system architecture? Was it a lot of building and projects you did, or was it something that you took a certification, a course?
Okay, I had some courses, but it was probably a combination of courses and projects, because if you do like your own project, probably you're not interested in just like publishing a feature because you don't have a goal to publish a feature. So you can play around with different like architectures, new libraries, that kind of stuff. And also I took a course on like clean code and clean architecture, and that helped me a lot because like it tells you it shows you how to think of your solution to be testable and to make sense on like a data planning thing. So yeah, that helps a lot. You're not just like doing code like you would do if you're programming a microcontroller with assembly, let's say, because you're mostly thinking about the entities and the operation between entities, which is basically classes and object-oriented programming, plus the test that you're going to make in that code that you're going to code for testing that code that you just created. That helps. Not that you need to write the tests because you wrote like testable code, but just by having testable code, it's always good, like in general. But yeah, and the projects totally because you have the feature. What's the like? Can I rewrite my entire software? And the answer is absolutely, because if you have like just like 1,000 lines, what's the issue with rewriting everything? So you can try like new code, a new architecture, a new library, anything. But yeah, practice helps a lot, but having some guidance because of, I know that like some people when they're starting programming, they try like, they don't use a for loop. They just put they duplicate the code a lot and it works. So like if it works, why don't you use it? So most people can do this when they're starting. And like, yeah, if it works, you don't change it, you never learn something new. Imagine that you didn't have like a documentation or if you didn't have the internet, you would never know that there's a for loop. You would just keep copying and pasting your stuff. So yeah, you need some guidance, some like external guidance.
Interesting. Yeah. And how would you recommend system architecture? Like, how did you take a course that helped you, or did you, you just like using, a lot of chat GPT to figure out like how you doing a lot of
It was
system
before
architecture?
ChatGPT, Bolek. That's sad. Yeah. I took a course in Brazil from Rodrigo Branas. So it's even in Portuguese. So it's not like, it's very good, the course, but it probably won't be useful for most people because it's in Portuguese.
Okay.
Yeah. But other than that, mainly blog posts, YouTube videos, like YouTube videos, we have a lot of good content in YouTube about that. And yeah, mainly being open to new stuff, because if you're doing like normal programming, and you'll see a post about functional programming, why not try it? And that's how you might like get some functional concepts to use.
Interesting. What are the new ways you're learning? Like, are you using things like ChatGPT to sort of learn, or like, do you like still reference specific books, or when you need to pick something up? Because I like to know, because like pre AI era, we used to go to Stack Overflow and like look at it. I actually noticed there are instances where Stack Overflow actually has a better answer. Like I found like one or two times that was the case. But I'm just curious about like what your thought is in this.
Okay. So before the AI era, yes, Stack Overflow, YouTube videos. I was not that into books. I've never been because like not because it's slow, but because it just doesn't work for me. Like I would rather read something very quick and short than read an entire book just to get one concept. Of course, I know that some people do, like they just open the book in the middle, search for the right page and read the concept that they need, but that doesn't work for me. So mainly YouTube videos. I'm still using YouTube to get like to learn about new stuff. So I really like it. Stack Overflow for sure, because if you're trying something, like there's a very quick and objective answer to what you're looking for. Plus hacking. And by hacking, I mean, this is not working. So what if I change this to be that? And then you try it. It doesn't work. Try again, try different stuff and keep working with that. Like if you didn't know about the for loop, you would just like try every word that you can and discover what language is what keywords the language supports and try that. So hacking also helps with that.
Yeah, okay. That's cool. So currently, day to day, like you've joined Addy, right? And at Addy, you're building a lot of features on the platform, and you're one of the co-contributors as well. What is like your day to day coding flow like? Like how do you plan? Are you using any AI, if any? Like what kind of workflow are you using day to day?
Okay, I do use AI. I was joking saying that I don't use AI, but I do. That I don't like AI, but I do like it and I do use it. So, okay, first thing, of course, is planning. Because usually when you start working on something, you have a task or you have like, at least you have a message, a Slack message saying, we need that. And now my first task is to like translate that message into something that my brain understands. So what happens is most of the times I basically rewrite the ticket with my own words. This way I can like understand what's needed and then I can start working on it. So yeah, I open the code editor and sometimes I like to brainstorm with the IDE with AI basically. I don't let it produce code at first. I usually switch like the mode to ask and not to agent. This way I can get some like not necessarily brainstorming, but like some guidance because AI is way better than me at like reading large sections of codes or multiple files. So I let it do it. And usually I already know what we need to do because like if I know the code base, which I know, I almost know what to do. Also, I also give AI some guidance of what I'm planning to do. And I let it think of like, can this break? How fragile is that? What are the external dependencies? Do we have something that we can reuse to do this feature? And then I start working. And most of the times I start working, I would say manually without AI because I already know what I need to do. So I start working. But so in some cases, I do use AI. And I think it's very subjective on when to use or not AI in my case, because if the task is very like simple, or if I feel like AI is going to do a great job at it, I just let AI do it. Like I change the type from ask to agent and let AI do it. And in some cases it works because I've had really good experiences where I just told it exactly what to do with a very large prompt and it nailed it. I didn't have to change anything. But in other cases, I kept iterating. So like, oh, you did this wrong. Please change that. Oh, this could be better. Do that. And you keep going, keep going. And at the end, you have like 20 iterations and it's not good. Like in that case, I would rather just discard everything. So I reject everything from AI and start doing it by scratch. This happened before when I thought like, this would have been much faster if I just did it by myself without like iterating 20 times over the prompts. And so it depends a lot.
Yeah, I did notice myself as well. When I see it's looping over, I just discard, and sometimes I just like start afresh, or like I just start doing it manually, especially for small things, right? It's just faster to do that. Are there any specific models you're switching between, or are you using auto mode on cursor? Like, what's your strategy?
I don't use auto mode at all. I didn't have a good experience with that. I usually use Claude Sonnet, but I recently tried ChatGPT with Cursor. I didn't like it. It works, but it's really slow. So I just like I create the prompt, send it, go make a tea, return for my tea, drink my entire tea, and it's not done yet. It's still like thinking. So yeah, and Claude is much faster. And in general, I like the precision of Claude Sonnet. And
Right.
yeah, I also don't like, there's one specific case where I don't like using AI. It's when the feature is very sensitive or very important. In that case, I don't use it at all because mainly I use it for brainstorming, like the ask mode, not the agent mode, because like this cannot break. Not saying that if I do it, if I code, it won't break, but at least like I know where it can break. So yeah, in those cases, I prefer doing it manually. And of course, like generally, you should 100% of the times read all of the code that AI generates. But also because there's another topic, which is when AI generates the code, I need to understand that code. It works, of course, because it's just like if you're reading a PR from another developer, you'll still need to do basically the same thing. But like instead of being another developer, it's just AI generating that code. So you have to read everything. And at least for me, it's harder to understand something that someone else wrote than my own code. So if I write my own code, I know 100% of that feature for sure. Even in the future, like if I forget 80%, I still know that 20%, which is generally enough to get a head start on fixing a bug. So yeah, writing my own code it's much better for understanding something than just letting AI do. You still can understand, but like you just read it, review, okay, it's fine, and then accept. And one day later, you don't remember what it did. And someone asks
That
like, oh, this is not working. And you think, "Oh, so I might have to start a new conversation to a new brainstorming to know how this feature works before I can start fixing the bug. That happens sometimes.
Yeah, I feel if like you've put too much dependency, then it becomes a challenge because you have to like tell it to fill its context again and like start writing code. What kind of, do you have any belief or prediction about where it might go? Do you think there might be a future where we're purely just chatting to code, or like, or like, do you still think there'll be a lot of hands-on work? Because the models are getting better and better every iteration. And today, Cloud released Cloud Haiku 4.5, which seems to be a lot faster as well with the performance of Cloud 4. So I am just curious to see what your thoughts are. And obviously, no one's going to be right here or wrong because it's like just a random prediction that you have as a engineer. So what are your thoughts in this matter?
Okay. First of all, I'm comfortable because I think there will still need to be a lot of developers. So I'm fine with that. But I was very impressed when Cursor, not just when Cursor launched, but also with their improvements. Because sure, we have the LLMs, which are just like text prediction things. And for sure, they will get much better with time. But at the same time, you have the LLM, which thinks, and then you have, which is like in the analogy, you can think of it as a person. So you have a person, but you also have a developer because us developers, we have like processes. We have, I don't know, like our mental model of how to program. And LLMs can think, of course, but they don't have that. Imagine like a workflow. I open Cursor, I think of the database, I start writing this code here and everything else. So what Cursor did is basically like what they did is they tried to use LLM as just the brain, but put the workflow around it. And it worked very, very well because whenever you're working on a feature, I was thinking about this some time ago. First thing that you do is you try to locate where in the code you need to work. You need to add a function or something like that. And then what I usually do is I open the front end, search for find a text and do a grep for that text. And guess what? Cursor does exactly that. They tell it, they have some kind of magic prompt where they tell it like, what are these strings that we can grab to search for places where this code can be? And it searches, it finds, it reads the files, it gets like, I usually see it doing like a tree thing where it gets the code, the file, then it gets the parent file and the grandparent file, but also the children. So it does a really great job. And I think that what Cursor is doing is basically like what a developer would do. So even though you have like your capacity of thinking, you also have your process of coding. And Cursor, I think it's doing a really great job at like mimicking this process. So yeah, we have two rooms for improvement: the LLM themselves, but also like people can also improve the AI tools around like how to make it follow the same general process that developers follow when developing the features. And yeah, that if this gets better, it would be very nice. But at the same time,
Okay.
I don't see like in the next 10 years, you can creating a prompt or like editing a prompt and letting AI do the entire thing. At least you'll need to review it because if there's a 10% chance of it being wrong, it's already very bad for a production system. Yeah, those are my thoughts. Excited, but okay, yeah. No, developers won't be replaced with AI.
That's yeah, I like your take on it. It's like still have to verify and sign off on the code, right? Like at the end of the day, because you're not gonna blame the AI for screwing up something major, right? In a production system, you will have to take the accountability. So at the end of the day, you're still required because I don't think any managers might just in the future like they'll at least need some people to like verify and be like, okay, like yeah, what's happening is correct because it's like a doctor trusting that an AI will do the right surgery is very close to the analogy, except that it's not that critical as but it is critical still, right?
Mhm.
So it's that trust factor that I think is
And
important.
totally agree. And in those same lines, we have some business knowledge that every developer has that AI doesn't have about like the business and everything. So you still, even if you don't touch the code and even if you don't review, you might have to create a giant prompt to tell it every edge case. And also like if the system is big, really big, it won't fit in one prompt. And at the same time, if you just like, if you're creating a very specific prompt, you're basically programming, but instead of using like C or JavaScript, you're using English. So that's still developing, I think.
That's true. Yeah, I never thought about it that way. That's very true. It's just a language change, but you're still instructing the computer, and you need to know what it's capable of in that sense. You cannot tell it to just do anything. Like you have to have some level of specificity, because even with the prompt, there's a lot of vagueness. You might write a sentence that intends to do something that you didn't want it to do, because it interprets the prompt in its own way. And it happens all the time. Like a lot of times you tell it to do something, and like it makes up something that it assumed, and you read that and you're like, oh yeah, like it was correct, but not like what I was trying to say. And in fact, even humans have this problem when you think about it. If I explained something to you and I wasn't clear, then you will have a hard time. You might end up doing the wrong thing or might have a hard time, right? So there's still the need for having clear instructions. I
That's probably why we have JavaScript or C or any other programming language, because if this is true, if you have this sentence, if this is true, there's no way that it's going to be wrong. Yeah. And also, in some cases, I remember that like I was trying AI and I just wrote a very vague prompt. And I was praying like, please AI, try to understand what I mean with that, with those two words. And sometimes it does a great job, but other times like it misses information. And in some cases, I remember writing a prompt where I was just programming with English. Like, if this status is true, do that. If not, do that. In that edge case, do that. So same as programming, probably.
Yeah, it's cool. Have you also felt like the tabbing has gotten better? Like as you're writing the code, it just like the prediction has gotten so much better, like compared to a few months ago.
Yeah, that's one thing that I use every day, every time, and I really like it. The text prediction is very good in Cursor at least. And I really like because previously it was just auto-completing code, but now it can navigate up and down and it can auto-import. So if there's something missing, a linting error, it can like import the dependency. That's impressive. I really like that, and I use it every time.
Yeah, the tabbing is very impressive. Cursor can jump across files, like so before you could get the import at the top, but you might have changed some function signature that's being referenced in 5 other files. Now Cursor kind of has the context. It's able to like jump with a tab. It jumps to the 5 different signatures, and it's able to add the parameters to all the other functions when you do that. And I thought that was cool, because initially you'd have to right click, or you'd have to like F12 find the references, click on each reference, add those parameters and in each case, and then go down that and you go down that road of like updating each instance, right? And then the other thing I even feel like is I wrote software for like I think 5 years before AI, right? I built a lot of production systems, handmade, no synthetic. It was
The good way.
yeah, in a good way. And like I think about 30% of it was copy pasting stuff that existed, the patterns that existed. 30 to 40%. Like you'd go and find like uh existing feature or a pattern that was used in the project, and then you would like take that as a boilerplate, use that in your own functions, and then make the changes according to that. So I even find that it's really good for boilerplate stuff. AI is
Exactly.
boilerplate. Yeah. So
For that, I think it's very useful, and it was useful even before like the whole LLM thing, because we have Copilot, which was not as good as Cursor's tab, but it was very great. Like 5 years ago, maybe less, maybe more, it was great
mhm.
already. Because yeah, and even when you're not copying pasting code, you're probably writing a very similar thing from what you have in the same file or in the same system. So you're effectively kind of rewriting the same code or copying pasting. And other times you have like giant variable names, which are good for readability, for understanding the code, but you don't want to be copy and pasting it and also not typing for sure, that long word. So just tab it. For that, it's very good.
That's a good tip. All right, cool. That was a good chat about how you're using it. So we're getting toward the end of the podcast, and I just wanted to ask you, like, do you have any, um, insights or interesting hack that you use that you didn't know about that you'd like to share with everyone?
I don't know. Maybe. Okay. Of course, one recommendation is using AI to code, at least to brainstorm, because it's good. Like if it's a simple thing and it can do it for you in like 1 minute, 2 minutes, and you just review it and you already know what you're gonna do, that's fine. But also like keep experimenting. So what if I change the model? What if I use this other LLM provider or LLM tools? It's good to play with those kind of features and tooling, mainly to test, because something that works for me, like for our project and for the way that I code, might not work for other persons. So experiment. Regarding like productivity, I have a really good tip. I usually I use Pomodoro, but not to keep track of the time. I just use it to start, because when you're like, I'm afraid of starting this new task. I usually do this. So I just open the Pomodoro and start the timer, and then I must start working. Usually I forget about it. So it rings and I keep skipping everything. I just ignore Pomodoro, but it's good to start. Just because when I click start on it, I must open the IDE and I must start working on something. So that's a really good kickstart for when you're feeling lazy or anything else. That helps a lot.
That's a great hack. I'll try it myself. It's good for starting. Yeah, that's so true. It just gets you in the zone of starting to do the work.
And I've heard somewhere else that the best thing that you can do to start working is just opening your IDE. Because if it's open, you can't do anything else. Of course, you can switch to Chrome and read the news, but you already have the IDE. You just need to open a task and start working on it. It's easy.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Yeah.
Another tip, I like doing side projects. For sure, I recommend that. So because most of the times you're working with a production system that cannot break, and that's usually big. And the chances are that you're not gonna magically switch the database. So the only way of doing that is doing test projects, learning new languages. And I've been recently playing around with Golang. And one tip is, of course, to try new stuff. So new languages, new frameworks, new architecture, systems, tools, but also to disable the tab completion and the cursor thing when learning new things. That's one tip that must be taken. You should usually I think oh, this is so hard to do. This simple thing connecting to this database should be so easy to do, but the act, it's not working, of course, but the act of searching around, of trying new parameters, it's much better for you than just letting cursor do it in 1 minute. For sure, cursor will do. Usually cursor is good at fixing the reason why your database is not connecting, but you won't learn anything from it. And if it's in your production code, it's good because you just need it fixed. If the quickest you find the solution, the better it is. But when you're playing around with your side project, you don't care about productivity. You just need it to work for you and maybe enjoy the act of searching, trying new stuff. Probably that.
That's a good insight. It's going to be tricky. Like I'm thinking, if I ever have to pick up a new programming language, it's well, knowing the fundamentals is important. Once you've crossed that bridge, at least you can how to learn, right? You've learned how to learn. I think that was the toughest for me initially when I was trying to learn how to program. It's I had to learn how to learn it because you can't memorize, right? The syntax, it's useless. But if you know the constructs, and you know what the limitations of the languages are. Let's say if I work with C, I know that, okay, with C, you have to learn how to manage the memory. But in Java, this garbage collection, right? JavaScript is single threaded, but there's a interesting way they've made it perform like multi-threaded language. And so a lot of things like that you kind of have to know still.
I feel I'm much faster with my main language, which is JavaScript/TypeScript, much faster. So when I switch to Go, of course you have all of the fundamentals that you still use in every language, and also Go has Go routines, so it's easy to understand the concept. But if I need to filter a list or an array in JavaScript, it takes less than 30 seconds for me. In Go, it's a pain in the ass. I need to if I would do this right now, I would need to search the internet on how to do it for sure. So it's mostly the speed that you can program on a language. I cannot like filter a list in Go because like my main language is TypeScript slash JavaScript. So like I can do it in less than 30 seconds, but in Go, I can't. Like if I would do this right now, I would open the internet, search on Google on how to do that and do that. So, but it's fun. Like when you don't know how to do a basic thing with a different language, it's good because it makes your brain work and your Google abilities. It trains your Google abilities. But yeah, the main features, the basic concepts, the every language has a some kind of concurrency via mutexes or anything else, or Go routines or async await, anything. You just like you learn a couple of basic things that change between languages, and then the logic is like the core is the same. The way you're gonna structure your data, the operations that you're gonna do with that data, they are kind of the same.
Yeah, that's so true. That's actually how you should think about it.
I have a thought. Remember that, like, I think I heard somewhere that classes are basically, or object oriented programming is basically joining data and operations on that data. And that's basically, I think that's basically 100% of what we do with code. We have data, information, and we need to change or mutate or operate with that data. And that's object oriented programming, but like you can do it in any language.
Yeah. Uh-huh. I think toward the conclusion, I was just gonna say, is there anything else like 2 minutes you wanna say, or we can, conclude as well?
We can conclude, but final words are test, try new stuff, try new programming languages, new features, new things. And I think that right now it's really good to be updated on the news, on newsletters, on like YouTube videos, because technology is not necessarily evolving, but changing a lot. So of course you still have those concepts from like 20 years ago of programming that still apply for sure. But also like, even though you're not going to be using the newest framework on your day job, the framework that launched yesterday, maybe you have one concept from it that you can abstract, that you can use on daily. So yeah, keeping up to date, which I know it's hard because of like the amount of news and updates that we have daily, but it's good to have some kind of it.
Yeah, you should always keep learning, right? The field just changes so fast, and it's important to like keep up. So yeah,
If you
but
search online, probably some framework got launched today. I'm sure. It's just like you just need to search for it.
Yeah, I bet this is all these days it's more like AI, like a new model launched,
Yeah.
and so but yeah, okay. I think that marks the conclusion to our podcast. Thank you very much, Pedro, for sharing the insights, and I think I've learned a lot today. So yeah, thank you everyone for watching the Deployed Engineer podcast. Till next time.
Thanks, Malik. Thanks for having me. Really like to chatting with you.